I'm Amanda, and today we're going to be having a product talk, as you may know. I haven't really introduced myself properly. I'm a PM at Vinta Software. It's a software studio located in Brazil, and we work with web development, staff augmentation, and MVP development. And our clients are mostly based in the US. Anyways, one fact about myself is that I haven't always been a product manager. I actually started out as a developer myself, and I really value my technical background, right? So having lived the best and the worst of both worlds, I find it extremely important that developers, designers, and PMs alike are all able to speak the same language, at least on a basic level. All right, before we even start, I'd like to give some disclaimers. Here's the thing. I've given some talks in the past and it doesn't get any easier. I'm always pretty nervous. So I just want to get some facts out before we start so my mind is at ease. So all experiences are my own. Yes, I'm bringing some literature here, but a lot of this talk comes from my personal experience and what we do at Vinta. I also perform a project manager plus product manager role, so your mileage may vary. And I also work for a software studio that works with various product companies. So the experience a PM gets managing a single product directly may be different. So I just want to go over the talk outline really quickly so you guys know what's coming ahead. So we're going to cover some things about like what your PM really wants, how to bridge the gap between developers and PMs, how to become a product-minded engineer. And the second part of the talk is like diving into product. And I've divided that into parts as well. So the first part is about understanding the strategy and your users. And the second part is understanding your PM's vocab and decisions. If you want to go even further, I have it broken down here too. We're going to cover things like the product lifecycle, strategy and goals, going through vision and mission, strategy, North Star metrics, goals and OKRs, roadmaps, personas, and customer journey mapping. And for the second part, we're going to dive deep into product discovery, execution, and product metrics. And since we have so many terms, I also set up a cheat sheet for everybody who wants to consult the terms I'm speaking about. I'm gonna try to explain like the most that I can about every one of them, but like if you want to check it out, it's there. And yeah, let's get to it. So what your PM really wants. You may have had experiences with managers who want to centralize the work, who want to be a part of every decision. I'm not that kind of manager. And you may also have had experiences with managers who focus solely on the product decisions and just leave their team to fend for themselves. I'm also not that type of manager. In my opinion, if software development was an online game, the manager would definitely be a support character. The manager's job is not to perform anyone else's job better than they do, nor is it to be the main character. The manager's job is to, one, make sensible decisions regarding the product strategy based on the input they get from their own work and other experts. So should I save that heel for later? Second, allow everybody on the team to be the best version of themselves. So buff everybody up. And third, execute their own field-specific activities like defining, pulling, and analyzing metrics, running product discoveries, research, tests, and so on. So their tech skills. About that second point, I swear I'm not a coach. Don't want to sell you any lifestyle content, seriously. I just think that quote is true, even though it sounds corny. So speaking in practical terms, here are the top 3 things that your PM wants generally. So 1, a team that is interested in the strategy. Second, genuine interest in solving problems. And third, empathy with end users. So this is a shared responsibility between the team and the manager. And well, let's go over it in 2 parts, starting with the PM. So PMs need to empower their team so that they are aware of product strategy, and the team also needs to understand what they're building, to whom, and why very clearly, and be able to translate that into actionable. So PMs should present the strategy clearly to their team and keep them updated on changes, as the strategy is inevitably bound to change. And I won't really go into detail of what that means in practical terms because like there are endless ways of applying these concepts, but this is the gist of it. And I actually wrote a blog post about project visibility last year, which contains some of my thoughts on the matter. So if you want to check it out, there's a short link there and a QR code too. So as for the team, I think needs to worry generally about two things. So their interest and their curiosity. Like, you don't need to know everything. It's not your job to be a product expert. This is what product managers are for. What you do need is to be interested in solving problems and to have empathy with the people who are going to use what you're building. Another important trait is attention to detail and quality. And like, this may sound a little abstract, but I believe it's what best sums it up. Like, we want you to care about the experience from start to finish. And in practical terms, that means like, if you own a task, you really own it, from planning it to discussing the implementation details to implementing it, shipping it, testing it, measuring its success, etc. So in summary, there's a certain engineer profile that the best tech teams usually have, and that is the product-minded engineer. So we'll go over that in a second. And what does your PM expect? Well, these are generalizations, of course, and no one can really answer that but your PM. So it's always good to set up a one-on-one from time to time to understand what these are. And even if you think you have it pretty clear, I would rather over-communicate than under-communicate. So yeah, go after them. All right. So how do we bridge the gap? So expectations are now clear, and like, how do we bridge this gap? I have witnessed firsthand how hard it can get for some PMs to communicate with developers and vice versa. And in an ideal world, every character in the story would be interested in understanding a little bit about their colleagues' domains. Not to actually become an expert in that domain themselves, but to get the bigger picture and clearly communicate about challenges and opportunities. This won't always apply to the real world though, so let's just get to the part you can control, which is your own approach to this. The first step here is to understand, and by the way, sorry for the wall of text. The first step here is to understand your audience, like how technical is your PM? And like, if they're somewhat technical, you may not need to go into a lot of detail about the nuts and bolts of what you're trying to accomplish with your work, right? If they're not technical at all, you'll need to be actively mindful of your own communication. So I asked one of my team members to help me with this. Here are some examples of like purely technical and somewhat technical with context forms of communicating the same task. So the purely technical, as you can see, we have a bunch of terms here. I want you to focus on like the checklist. Like, I mean, for a technical person, I think this is pretty clear. If you're not that technical, or maybe you don't know AWS that well, which is my case, I mean, I read that and I'm like, what? What do you mean? What are you doing? What are you doing? So the second one, as you can see, like the person gives some more context, like it explains what happens during deployments, what happens when like the signal is sent and it indicates that it'll be shut down, and what means sig term at the end of the day, right? So it's much better, and in the end, they say exactly what they're trying to accomplish, right? So I now understand the impact of what that person is working on and can report on their work, make decisions on prioritization, considering their opinions, and so on. One of the worst things that can happen in a PM dev dynamic is when the PM just gives up on understanding the practical details of what their team is doing due to not being able to communicate, right? At the end of the day, this just generates more work for everybody involved, as more people are going to be pulled into discussions and alignments, and this is not good for everybody's well-being. All right, so after making sure you understand your audience and your audience understands what you're saying, here comes the next challenge, which is like to understand a little bit of what your audience understands best. So how to become a product-minded engineer. So to become one, I think you first need to understand whether you see yourself in this position or not. So it's okay that not all engineers may want to be product-minded engineers. Like, companies generally have room for everybody, from the most technical to the most business inclined. And people are allowed to have different inclinations and simply not like a certain career style. The downside is that you probably won't be the first choice to impact users through sensible product insights. And like, depending on where you are, this might influence your career progression. In any case, don't knock it till you've tried it. So first step, which we already covered, is about being interested in the business and its user base, right? First of all, a problem first approach is very important when it comes to empathizing with users and solving real problems, as it's easy to fall into the trap of interviewing users and going with the solutions they offer instead. So you need to be intentional about filtering the solution talk out and turning the discussion around to cover the problem itself. understanding the strategy and connecting the high level goals with actions you can take as an individual contributor also play a huge part in this step, as it'll make you more autonomous as an engineer in turn, right? So by understanding the main objectives, you need less input from others when making micro decisions in your workflow. All right. So second step is to be curious. So curiosity will help you gather unspoken context about the problems you solve. And it'll also help you be opinionated about better solutions as you have the knowledge to propose alternatives. The best engineers I've ever worked with generally fit this profile, as and in consequence, they come up with the most creative solutions. So sometimes even cheaper than what we've considered before. This profile also tends to spark up healthy debates, which contribute to building great products. Um, and the third step is to provide relevant input. As an engineer, you're the person with the most context about the technical side of the product. So it's crucial that you're vocal about constraints, implementation details, and alternatives. And like, of course, PMs and designers will usually try to prioritize the most user-friendly solution, but there may be cases where there's a second best choice that is way cheaper, and more often than not, the cheap second best is the one to be chosen. So if you want to learn more about like becoming a product-minded engineer, here are two blog posts that I really enjoy, especially the second one. Actually, the second one is a blog that I recommend in general. Pragmatic Engineer is incredible. I really recommend you guys sign up for it. Okay, so I just talked a lot about like becoming a product-minded engineer. Let's get into the hard skill part of the talk, which is the quick course on product-related subjects. These are a mix and match of product content, project management, and business in general. So bear with me if you have heard about some of them before, because the idea here is to cover as many basic subjects as possible. All right, breathe a little. All right, so let's start out with the product lifecycle. Basically, there are 4 phases in which every product in the market may cycle through. So there's introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. Sometimes a product may only get to the first and then jump directly to the 4th phase. Sometimes it goes through every single one of them. And we'll go into detail about each phase and understand why it's important to capture in which phase your product is situated. So for the introduction, well, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's the phase in which the product gets launched into the market. And at this point, costs with marketing and advertising are high, as the main point of this phase is to raise awareness about the solution. And it's also possible that you may have to do educational work with potential customers, especially if the solution you're marketing is groundbreaking, as that usually means a shift in paradigm. There are several channels that can be used for product intros, demos, social media promotion, one-on-one presentations, and so on. But usually the main concern in the product realm is to make sure that we're solving the right problem and are able to progress toward product market fit. At this point, curiosity and flexibility are important, and you may find out that by pivoting a little, you can reach a broader audience. So it's important not to fall into the sunk cost fallacy, in which one keeps on investing into an idea just because of the time and money already spent on it. So how can you help your PM in this phase? Ask questions, understand why you're implementing something and what we would like to prove by doing it. And also think about strategy weekly. Ask your PM questions about the company's goals and provoke them into suggesting ways you can support this growth. Cool. Let's get into the growth stage. This is a stage that is crucial to a company. In the introduction phase, you may have validated that your idea works for a select group of people or companies, but in the growth stage, you want to scale and make sure that you cross the chasm of adoption. So in this phase, profit margins increase if everything goes well, and scalability issues may arise and will need to be addressed by the product team. So how can you help your PM in this phase? Encourage experimentation, propose new ideas that were not originally proposed by your PM, ask to be included in product discovery calls with end users, as this will help you gain empathy about what their problems are and give you ideas on how to solve them. Most of the projects that I've taken part in have either been in the introduction stage or the growth stage product-wise. So the common talk was very much about scale and how to do it. And in my experiences, we managed to solve the tech part of scaling, like performance issues, system limitations, and so on. However, the biggest challenge was always around scaling sales, platform onboarding, and things like marketing. All right. So the maturity stage indicates that the product has reached peak profitability, right? So costs with marketing and ads aren't high because the product is likely well established and known by this phase. So usually companies that already predict they may enter the decline stage soon use this moment to try and innovate. Like they may acquire smaller companies with groundbreaking ideas, build innovation hubs inside their companies, or do nothing to prevent the decline. So how can you help your PM in this phase? Keep an eye out for market trends, suggest ways to refresh or add features to keep the product relevant, and also collaborate with the PM to identify potential areas for innovation and improvement. And finally, indicators of the decline stage are decreases in sales, loss of market share, and failed efforts in marketing. Market saturation and more modern solutions may be causes of this decline. And if a company hasn't used some time in the maturity stage to find other sources of revenue, this is probably their last shot at succeeding before their current source runs out. So how can you help your PM in this phase? One, be proactive in exploring new revenue streams or partnerships that could potentially revive the product, and also maintain open communication with the PM to assess the situation and strategize accordingly. All right, so let's now get to strategy and goals. And I want to start out with vision and mission. So by understanding where a business stands in terms of the product lifecycle, we can now start to think about how that strategy goes from its most abstract to its most practical. There are several ways of doing that, but I want to cover mission and vision first. So the mission is basically a simple answer to why that company or product exists. It's like the most present focused and to the point of the statement. So for GitLab, for instance, it is GitLab's mission to make it so everyone can contribute. As for the vision, it usually reflects a longer term goal of where the company would like to be in 5, 10 or more years for larger companies, and 2 to 5 years for most. Like it should reflect what a company is trying to achieve with their mission statement. So for GitLab 2, it's to become the all ops platform, a single application for all research and development. So as long as your company's mission and vision are clear to you, you'll be better empowered as a developer to make strategic decisions. And like if these statements are a mystery to you, you should ask for clarity from your leaders. Like this may seem very high level and you may wonder how that could connect to your daily work, especially if you work on something very technical, right? But like you'd be surprised how much that can influence your decisions. Like I started out as a developer myself, and paying attention to the company's objectives on a higher level made me grow at a faster rate in my career than if I had stuck to my daily work without ever considering strategy. So how can you do that? Like pay attention to strategy meetings if you have them. They may seem boring at times. They sometimes take time you could be using to code or review PRs, but they hold valuable information. So sometimes even somewhat concealed information that if you pay close attention, can help you grow in your career. So ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask about things that may seem like none of your business, because leaders will usually pay attention to that and be happy that you're interested in helping them, and that will reflect positively on you. Also, keep in mind that these statements may change according to changes in the organization, the environment, and so on. So it's always good to keep up with the news related to strategy. All right, so let's talk a little bit about like strategy. Basically, the strategy is the actionable part that derives from the vision and mission. And it brings these ideas to a practical format and results in a plan, usually consisting of around like 5 concrete statements that will theoretically get you close to the goal. So it's better to be more specific than general when it comes to strategy, as it's hard to focus on multiple areas at once. So finding an example of strategy was a little difficult, as it's a privileged piece of information that could jeopardize a company's plan. So from Lenny's newsletter article, I found Yahoo. So this is from a memo their VP released in 2006, and that became known as the Peanut Butter Manifesto, in which they pointed out Yahoo's lack of focus and specialization. Of course, these are just like the main objectives. They have more subtasks on each one, but I think it illustrates very well like how it's like a step-by-step plan, right? So focus the vision, restore accountability and clarity of ownership, and execute a radical reorganization. What Yahoo did there was to understand and acknowledge its problems, figure out where they want to go, and plot out a strategy to resolve the issues found. So while you as an individual contributor won't probably be responsible for setting these up at the end of the day, you can ask yourself whether the product strategy makes sense, ask the right questions to your leaders, and apply these concepts to your day-to-day work. All right, so let's get into the North Star metric. Basically, the North Star metric is like the guiding star for a business. It's the one metric that captures the essence of a company's value proposition and long-term success. So it's not just about short-term gains, but it focuses on sustained growth and customer satisfaction. It also helps you stay focused on what truly matters and ensures that all your efforts are moving in the right direction. So not all companies need to have a North Star metric, but it certainly is helpful. So that metric, alongside the company's strategy and goals, will help guide product decisions. So here are some examples. For Spotify, it's time spent listening. For Airbnb, it's like number of nights booked. And for Facebook, monthly active users. By having a North Star metric, one can define what really matters to their business and mold strategies around like moving the needle on that metric, right? So in one project that I worked for, what mattered the most were active users, and we'd keep that metric in mind, and it guided our decision making at all times. So we had several charts that measured this metric by week, month, and year, and that allowed us to predict whether we were going in the right direction or not over time. All right, from the mission and vision statements, as well as the strategy, we can start talking about high-level goals. So some companies set these goals in different ways. Like they may not have a framework for that. They may use SMART, which stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, OKRs, or something else altogether. I'll be using OKRs to illustrate this because it's one of the most popular frameworks for goal setting, and it's one that I've personally had experience with. So what are OKRs? So OKRs stand for Objective Key Results, and they're not new and shiny. They actually came out in the 70s at Intel, but were later popularized by Google around the late 90s. So they should be ambitious, yet achievable. And they're usually composed of an inspiring statement, which is the objective, and specific measurable results, which are the key results. It's important that the amount of objectives and key results remain small, like from 1 to 3 objectives and 1 to 3 key results, as you can focus on everything as a team, right? As we've learned. And it's also important that the main objectives that that team needs to achieve are reflected in the OKRs. Here's an example for Google Cloud. Their objective is to ensure the safety and security of Google Cloud, and their key results are to achieve SOC 2 Type 2 certification for Google Cloud, to implement two-factor authentication for all Google Cloud users, and to reduce the number of security incidents on Google Cloud by 50%. So as you can see, the objective is aspirational. They want to ensure the safety and security of Google Cloud, right? That's not a measurable and it's vague. It can basically mean anything, and that's where the key results come in. So you may have noticed that they have 2 all or nothing statements. You either achieve SOC 2 compliance or you don't. You either implement 2FA or you don't. So from my experience, all or nothing statements are a bit hard to track during a quarter, but we'll talk about a solution for that in a little bit. The third KR is more quantitative and can be tracked during the quarter more easily. Like it can sometimes be arbitrary. I'm not saying this is the case for Google. I'm sure they must have done some benchmarking to set this goal, but it can be hard to do so when you're in a smaller setting. So be okay with getting these numbers wrong at first. It's normal. KR should then like generate action plans, and these action plans can even be mitigations to the all or nothing KRs. Like you can break down the KR into steps and it becomes more measurable, right? You can then showcase a sense of progress in meetings like OKRs check-ins, for example. By the way, to ensure everybody keeps track of OKRs and we course correct when needed, it's good to meet up every couple of weeks to review where we're at with them. We also used to use OKRs at Vinta, but we don't anymore. Instead, we periodically run something called Squad Health Check, which comes from Spotify, and understand our priorities for the quarter from there, plus our higher level strategy. We don't have anything against OKRs specifically. It's just that for our use case, we figured it made more sense to drop them as we moved into smaller teams, in which like OKRs would be added bureaucracy. Here's bonus content as well. I really enjoyed GitLab's handbook, so I really recommend you guys check it out. They have like things like their North Star metric, OKRs, and other guiding principles of their strategy. So I definitely recommend you guys check it out. All right, so let's get into roadmaps. Roadmaps are ways to translate our goals and strategies into features and functionalities that we believe will contribute to achieving them. So they are great communication tools to get everyone on the same page about where we are and where we want to go. They also help us prioritize and think about allocation. Like, this doesn't mean roadmaps can't change. In fact, it's very healthy that they do, as there are many environmental variables that can influence a company's direction. So for that reason, it's important that the roadmap is periodically reviewed and updated. So in summary, they are a prioritized list of functionalities and projects. Some argue, sorry, I just skipped a slide. Well, here are 2 reasons for using roadmaps, which I just told you about. So some argue for not having roadmaps at all. And the argument here is that there are 2 main needs that we're looking to solve when we propose. Oh, actually, sorry. Anyways, show must go on. Basically, we want to make sure that everyone is working on higher priority items first, and to guarantee that any promises that have been made to customers are reflected in the planning, right? And in Inspired, for example, Marty Kagan argues that roadmaps are not a good idea usually, as stakeholders take these roadmaps promises to heart instead of treating them like ideas that can change over time. And he also argues that roadmaps are very much about deliveries instead of results. And fair enough, there are some alternatives to roadmaps. For example, if you have enough smart, experienced, and focused people, you can probably get away with setting goals per team and then letting them figure out how to achieve those goals. This, however, requires a level of maturity that not all teams have the privilege of having. So he also mentions that, like, as long as roadmaps are treated as lists of prioritized ideas, there's not a lot of downsides to it. So as long as the stakeholders don't interpret the ideas as promises, we're good. There are also things like result-based roadmaps, which have business problems as their items instead of specific features, which kind of mitigates the whole, deliveries focused thing. At Vinta, we usually set like quarter-based roadmaps and keep on constantly reviewing our ideas so that we're sure that whatever we're agreeing to tackle is in line with our current objectives and strategy. So whenever possible, we also involve the team to guarantee everyone feels connected and can contribute to the solution. We'll go over that in a little more detail in the product discovery section, but I've also had experience with results-driven roadmaps in which we took our high-level goals and connected them to features that we believed would unlock the results we needed. But there are like also other types of roadmaps. For example, the now, next, later one. And like basically there are countless ways you can choose to organize priorities. The format doesn't really matter. It's like what's best for your organization. All right, let's now talk about personas and how we can map their journey in our products. In turn, we'll have a better understanding of how to aggregate value through our deliveries and be able to prioritize our roadmap with more than just hunches about what our users want. So what are personas? They're fictional representations of a target audience, and they are defined based on research and data from real people who use the product. So basically, they are stereotypes of these individuals with their characteristics, behaviors, needs, goals, and preferences. They help us map out who are our main types of users and to better empathize with their struggles and needs. So this is a really common format there about things that we usually want to gather about personas, which is like name, description, demographics, customer needs, motivations, pain points, and also their journey through our customer cycle. So here's an example I took from a HubSpot article that pretty much showcases what this should look like. So we have her name, description, demographics, right? So Sarah is a young professional working in the financial sector. She wants to save money and invest in her future. And she wants a company that can help inform her about her options. And then we get some demographic detail about her. So going to the how your business or service can help her. So first we need to understand her needs. She wants ways to save money and receive investment advice. Motivation, she wants to be financially secure enough to retire early. We also learn about her pain points, her concerns, and then we finally reach her journey in our product. So she's just starting to think about her financial future. She's doing research online, and she wants to learn more. So it's best for our company to establish an online presence so that she can get information, onboard her to our free tool, and hopefully convert her to a paid user in the end. So these are all conclusions that one can arrive from a personas research, and that help us better discuss how our features may impact certain types of people. So it's important that everyone in the team is well acquainted with their product's personas. So conversations are aligned and we reach sensible conclusions about what really matters to our user base. We've used personas in some mature projects in the past, and it was a great way to discuss wants and needs of like every type of user. And for one of the projects we worked for, we had admin users and regular users, and their journeys were vastly different. So having their details mapped out was especially helpful in onboarding, for example. It also helped us communicate internally about which features were targeted at which personas, because like it can be hard to build impactful features when you don't know your users, and like when teams grow, it can be hard to get everyone on the same page about what's important. So personas were a great fit for us in that case. Another instrument to improve end user empathy and help us prioritize the right problems are customer journey maps. So it's good practice to keep user journey maps tied to one persona with one task with one goal. So if we're too broad, we'll fail to gather insights about specific actions and goals, and at the end of the day, we're not going to get the same results. So here's a template for a customer journey map that I used a little while. It just has like full bar data. But basically, there are some steps there, which is like awareness, consideration, acquisition, and service. And then we analyze their actions, goals, and experiences, their pain points, and then identify opportunities for each step of their journey through our product. For another one of the projects that I worked for, we sat down with a client and we built a user journey map together because like the product was an innovative idea, and we really wanted to make sure that investors got what our users' struggles were and how the journey in our platform would help them solve their problems. Again, this tool is especially useful for onboarding as it helped like new developers understand the main flow of the system before they even got to play with it, and also to understand the motivations behind what we had built already. All right, so I've talked a lot, and now we've reached the middle to the end of the talk, and we're gonna have a quick Q&A session.
Is anybody, any questions, any thoughts? Don't be shy.
I have a question. This is Kushbu. Yeah, thanks for walking us through this amazing presentation. It helps a lot. So my question is like, I'm a software developer and I'm looking to transition to product management. Do you have any course recommendation that can give me a clear roadmap on how to transition? That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Unfortunately, sorry, thank you. So unfortunately, the one I did was in Portuguese. I forgot to say, but I'm Brazilian. And I don't really have like a course recommendation, but I think you can find good ones on Coursera, for instance, which could be a good fit.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sankita.
Hi. My current role is kind of sandwich between product management and engineering management. I manage a team of for engineering and then design approach. But as and when, I stayed in this project for long, so it's kind of, I know all the business rules and all that. So I'm more inclined now. I'm talking to products and customers more, and then it's kind of inclined towards like techno product manager kind of role. But now I'm super confused, like what route I should take, because basically I'm an engineer leading a tech team, but eventually I've become a product person since I know product more than anyone in my team. So just wanted to understand from your perspective, what do you think?
Well, I am kind of like in the same position, to be honest.
Okay.
I really
Okay.
enjoy the technical part.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy product as well. So it is a hard choice. Like at like my current role, I have the opportunity to sometimes like touch some code, and it's something that I really enjoy.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure like if we necessarily have to choose, to be honest. Like I really enjoy like the way that I'm doing right now, that sometimes I get to touch code, but like most of the times I'm managing a team.
Yeah, I'm finding it difficult when I'm looking out for the job, like especially when I'm trying to switch, and I'm like, should I apply for engineering manager or should I apply for TPM or product manager? So because I have been doing everything in parts, but not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's a question in the chat, Amanda, if you want to answer, from Jack Sawyer. Where is the future in AI jobs? I don't know
Oh
if these
well, I wish
ones,
I
yeah.
had the answer to that. Actually, I just lost my screen again. Sorry, everybody. Every time I open Zoom, I just lose it again. Well, I'm not quite sure. I don't think anybody knows this answer yet. I hope there's still jobs for us in the future.
Any other questions? All right, well, we'll have another QA at the end. So if you didn't feel like you had a question or you want to ask something or you were too shy, just hang on and we will recap.
Cool. So now let's get to the second part of the talk, which is to understand your PM's vocab and decisions. So we talked quite a bit about high-level strategy, how we understand our users on a higher level, and also frameworks that are used to guarantee this is all aligned. But I would now like to cover the practical aspect. So your company has a defined strategy. What now? We just talked about roadmaps, goals, and so on, but like, how does that translate into actionables? How do we define what we're going to build, how we execute it, and how do we measure whether what we're doing actually works? So let's start out with product discovery and interview. So product discovery is a brainstorming and planning phase that happens before creating something new. So it's about finding out what customers want and need, and also checking out what competitors are doing out there and figuring out the best way to create something awesome that people will love. So it's laying the groundwork before diving into the actual building process. It's pretty safe to say that half of our ideas will not work out. So product discovery ends up increasing the chances that we'll get it right. As like we're making informed decisions about what we're to build, and it's also a great way of separating good ideas from bad. And like in the discovery phase, product engineering and design work together to answer four main questions. So will users buy or use this, which is tied to the value risk? Will users understand how to use it, which is tied to the usability risk? Can our engineers build this, which is tied to the feasibility risk? And will our stakeholders support this, which is tied to the business viability risk? And after answering these questions, we should have a validated idea that is a little further down the implementation process. So Does every idea need to go through product discovery? No. For things that the team is confident about, things that they have done before, and so on, you probably won't need to go through all of the steps here. Discovery is a great tool for when the confidence in the solution, considering the 4 questions above, is low. Product discovery is a huge topic, and it'll be hard to cover everything in little time, as it involves like interviews, tests, customer journey mapping, which we already covered, story mapping, etc. So I'd like to go over interviews and tests, and then we can wrap it up with execution and metrics. So, all right, so user interviews and product discovery are chats with your potential customers in which you ask them about experiences, needs, and frustrations to understand how they currently solve their problems or meet their needs. So these interviews help you gather valuable insights that guide the development of products or features that will help your users. So it's about listening carefully, asking the right questions, and uncovering the information that can shape your product. So they serve as a great way of validating if we really know our customers, the problems that we think they have, and like how they currently solve their problems, and even like what it would take for them to adopt our solution. So it's important that these interviews have a clear purpose. So it's a good practice to think beforehand about which questions you want answered or which assumptions you'd like to validate. It's also important to bring different perspectives into the meetings. So a good way of doing that is by involving designers and developers, as each one will absorb the information from their own point of view and will feel more connected to the decision process. So if your company does these types of interviews, as a developer, ask to be involved. So continuing on the discovery process, discovery tests are essential steps in product development, as they help teams understand different aspects of a potential product or feature. And you're also going to mitigate risks with them. There are various tasks you can perform in this phase, but I'd like to focus on four that like address the questions that we want to answer during discovery, which are the value tests, the usability tests, technical feasibility tests, and business viability tests. So testing the value and usability of a product is crucial for making sure it's both worthwhile and user-friendly. So the first risk to be mitigated should be the value, as if there's no value in building something, the rest of the risks don't really matter. So the exception to that are usability tests, and that's why they're in the section together. So to validate interest, you can do things like pretending a feature exists and see if people click on it or sign up for it. This is something called the fake door method. So let's say you have an internet banking product and you would like to assess whether your user base would be interested in an investment product or not. You could risk it and build this investment product and then test it in the real world, but the stakes are high and the costs are high as well. So instead, like you could just add a link to that investment product and inform users that the feature may be coming soon, but isn't available yet. So you can use the click data to assess whether people would be interested in that or not, or like even go further and ask people to share their emails or click a button to stay tuned to updates. If you don't yet have a product, you could even apply the same concept to like a landing page, for example. Another thing that you can do is chat with people and show them what you're thinking about to get their thoughts, as this helps you understand if people would actually use what you're making, if they like would tell their friends about it. This would fit in as a qualitative value test and is usually preceded by interviews. There are also quantitative value tests like A/B tests and invite-only tests. So A/B tests consist in showing two different versions of a certain flow to different people. And when we're testing the viability of an improvement to an existing flow, for example, this is usually done by taking a large part of the user base and keeping them on the current version, while taking a smaller part and sending them to the new one. This can also be done before a feature is launched, and I don't know, we would like to assess the most effective version. Invite-only tests can be done by selecting a few users and inviting them to test new features or even versions of your product. And since you're informing them that it's an experimental version and they can opt in if they'd like to, it's not a risky move to test things out this way. However, by choosing this method, we generally end up with a crowd of early adopters whose opinions and behaviors may not necessarily reflect those of a broader audience. So on the other hand, usability testing is about making sure that your product is easy to use. So you can create hi-fi prototypes of your product, watch how people interact with them as this helps you see if people can figure out how to use your product. And if they do get stuck, you can figure out how to make it better pretty easily. And there are two types of usability tests, the guided one and the autonomous one. In a guided usability test, a facilitator provides direction and interacts with the participant during the session. And in an autonomous one, the participant navigates independently without any guidance. So here are a few tips for when like executing guided ones. So go after people to test with, like you can try beta customers, you can hire people externally, or go to a physical place to test things. You can also bring 2 or more people if you can, as this way you'll be able to talk through the test later and see if you had the same impressions. It's also important to set the vibe with the tester to guarantee they know you won't be upset if they're honest about what they think. And it's also good to not try to fill in the gaps. So like you're in silence as much as you can. So like your guidance doesn't interfere with the results. You can also ask the tester to narrate what they're doing out loud, like pair programming, for instance. And finally, remember that at the end of the day, you're trying to validate if the solution solves your users' problems or not. So tweak the solution after gathering insights. All right, so you've gone through the value and usability tests, and it's now time to see if your team can actually build this. When understanding the technical feasibility of something, we usually want to answer questions related to how we're going to do it, if it's going to perform well, if we have the time and resources to go through with it, if we have the skills to do it, and so on. And I don't want to suggest a specific method to perform this sort of validation. I bet the tech leads and senior developers here know way more than I do. But the ones that I'm most accustomed to are RFC, so requests for comment, spikes, and tech feasibility meetings alongside the design team. So, and yeah, of course, like giving time to the engineers so they can ponder effectively on the solution. The RFCs I've taken part in usually had an owner who would research the feasibility of a certain solution or proposal and then write about their context, risks, advantages, and like disadvantages, implementation suggestions, and so on. They are really good way of like discussing asynchronously with the rest of the team, and they end up serving as documentation later on as well. Spike cards are a good way of assessing feasibility as well. I usually use them for smaller ventures that don't necessarily require an RFC. And they're tickets that have the unique goal of assessing the feasibility of a solution. And this can be done through like studying documentation, producing a proof of concept, and so on. As for tech feasibility meetings with designers, they're a good way of introducing ideas to an engineering team while they're still in the design stage. They're not meant to be a silver bullet for capturing features that are not viable, but to generate initial discussion around the solution and catch obvious errors. So the nitty-gritty will later on be tackled by a spike or an RFC. Cool. So for business viability, I'm not very experienced in this, to be honest. I imagine that PMs that are in single product companies directly get to do this more often. But like testing the business viability of a feature of a product is a complex ordeal and involves a set of stakeholders, like from the marketing team to sales to finance, board of directors, and so on. So I won't go into much detail here, apart from the fact that after validating all the steps above, it's important to give detailed thought to this one so resources are not wasted. All right. Let's now quickly get into the execution. And for time-saving purposes, I won't go into the details of the various agile frameworks that can be used. For what it's worth, we use Kanban at Vinta, and we chose this one because it emphasizes flexibility, one of the values that we hold dear in our work. But like, there's no cookbook for doing good work, and it's very possible that you have a different way of working in your company. But the workflow is how we operationalize the execution of our objectives. So returning to how everything fits. It's during execution that we take our objectives, apply all of the concepts about product discovery, execute, and finally reach the result, our delivery. Anyways, you probably know the drill. All right, so we discussed the philosophical part of the business with broad vision and mission statements, went into the strategy, tactics, methodologies, frameworks, and we finally reached our end result, the delivery. Now what? Some people could argue that we can call it a day, but how do we know if we actually impacted our users? Like for smaller businesses with small user bases, this may just be a matter of asking around. But like when you deal with a lot of data, you may want to look at the numbers first. So after all, we're solving problems, right? Not just shipping code. So product metrics are the key measurements that show how well your product is doing and how users are using it. These metrics help you understand your product's performance and make improvements where needed. So common product metrics include like user engagement, retention, conversion, customer satisfaction, performance, revenue, usage, and so on. And it's a good practice to set up some hypotheses before we even start developing our product. So remember how we wanted to answer some questions during our discovery phase? These questions are probably good guidance for setting up these hypotheses. And after these hypotheses have been set, we can think about what data will tell us if our hypotheses are correct or not. I worked for a project in which when like defining an epic to work on, we would set up a set of like 3 to 4 hypotheses related to a feature. So for example, if we were to migrate a legacy feature to a new way of doing it, we would come up with statements like, well, by 6 months, half of our customers will be using the new version. Of course, these statements need to be paired up with rollout plans, some validation, follow-up product education, and so on. But they were good ways of understanding if what we had implemented had worked on a higher level. We also took a look at like specific metrics like customer satisfaction, especially in our support flow, NPS, active users, and others. So the point here is that there are a multitude of product metrics and each context will have its most appropriate set. All right. So I bet you all are very tired by now. We covered a lot of topics today. And in case you're wondering where you can learn more about product matters, here are some blogs that I really enjoy reading. The first one I really recommend, it's a paid newsletter, which is really worth it. It has a lot of good insights about product. And I think the other ones are like open resources on product. And the main inspiration for this talk was, no pun intended, inspired by Marty Kagan. So I really recommend you guys check this book out. It's very important for people who want to learn more about product. And here are some references that helped me build this as well. So I hope you enjoyed the talk. Here's my LinkedIn in case you want to get in touch. I'd be happy to connect with you all and answer any questions. And if you're interested in augmenting your team capacity and like want to know more about Vinta's way of working, please also feel free to get in touch with me. Oh, and there's a link there for, we have a landing page, which the slides and like the recording will be posted to, so you can check this out as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Amanda. Did you want to open it up for any other questions or a Q&A session just to see if anyone
Sure.
else has some questions?
Sure, yeah, awesome.
You're getting a lot of love from the comments.
I'm seeing them just now. Thanks, everybody.
And also, I'm going to post everyone, if you haven't already joined, join Women Who Code, our Slack channel in the community. I posted it earlier. We'd love to have you. We have so many cool things going on. We have an in-person event next week as well. But all of this is easier to see, and kind of it's facilitated better. Oh, Jack Sawyer said, where can I find a mentor? Jack, if you join Women Who Code New York City, we can try to help you. You can DM me there. join that Slack community and I can try to help you out. Just DM me, okay? Are there any other questions on Amanda's talk? She did such a good job. We appreciate you so much, Amanda.
Thanks, everyone.
Anyone has any, I think the slides link will be on where will the slides link be, Amanda?
I'll send it in the chat. It's like vinta.com.br/event /WWC dash product dash 101. Oh, well, Beatrice was quicker.
Okay. All right, thanks, Beatrice. Yeah, if there aren't any other questions, do you want to share your LinkedIn profile? Definitely connect with Amanda. There's her information. And yeah, I mean, thank you so much, Amanda, and thanks for everyone who joined us tonight. This was a great event. Also, remember next week for International Women's Day. If you are in the New York City area, please do join us for Rubicon MD's in-person event. There will be drinks and refreshments and a really cool talk. All right. Well, I guess Amanda, do you want to say anything else? Any
I'm
other
really
thoughts?
thankful for, yeah, I'm just really thankful for everybody who joined. I was really scared to do this talk, but you guys were awesome. And yeah,
You crushed
thank
it.
you. Thank
Quiet
you.
crew tonight. I'm like, should I start calling out on people? No, I'm just kidding. I saw Tracy was here. I don't know if she's here anymore, but yeah, I see Lawrence too. But thank you so much for everyone who came. We really appreciate your support. And thanks, Amanda. I'll go ahead
Thanks
and
all.
stop. All right, guys.